Hey, this is Eric. I've been playing with VCV Rack lately, and I noticed that the Seek 3 modules don't put out a trigger signal, which is kind of a problem if you're trying to do like drums or anything that requires trigger. So there's nothing yet to give us trigger, but you can kind of fake it, and I will show you how. It kind of works on the principle that you don't have trigger, but you do have gate, and with gate we can kind of fake a trigger signal. So let's get into Rack, and I'll show you what's up. Alright, so we're in Rack now, and we're just going to set up our Rack real quick. So we'll add an audio interface. We'll toss it over here. I happen to know that that's the one I need. Oop, that's not the one I need. Hang on. It is this guy that works for the moment. And then we are also going to set up a scope, and I'll show you what I mean by Seek 3 not sending out triggers. So this is version 0.3.2, and in 0.3.2, Seek 3 does not have the trigger option. That's scheduled for 0.4.0. So, hopefully this is going to be fixed in the future, but I thought this might be useful to anyone who's getting started. Some of you guys who've been into modulars for a longer time probably already know this. But for anyone getting started, this is kind of how I faked it. There may be a better way to do it. This is just how I figured it out. So Seek 3, I'm going to show you with the scope here. We're going to take the gate output. There is no trigger output. So you've got gates or you've got control voltages here from these knobs. And we're just going to take the gate, and we're going to toss it in the scope. And we're going to dial the time back a little bit so we can see what's up. And we're going to scale it down just a tad. So now you can see the problem is that these gates, they go high and then they stay high for the duration of the step. And trigger is not that. Trigger is a very brief high signal, and then it just instantly decays. So you can see here where we've got these two steps activated, we're getting a double long step instead of two discrete steps. So if you try to put that into if you try to put that on, say, a kick drum, which we'll dial in the kick here real quick, and we'll just toss it into there it is. We'll toss the gate on the trigger. We'll take the output. So we're missing a step here, right? Like as a matter of fact, if I put all of these on, you're not even going to get one. It's high the whole time, so it's never triggering. And if we turn off, say, the last step, you're only going to hear this first step. So how do we fix that? Well, we're going to move our oscillator out of the way. Well, we're going to disconnect everything first. We're going to move our oscillator out of here. And what we do have is gate. What we don't have is trigger. So we're going to take the gates, and we're going to put them into an ADSR. Now, the downside that we have here is we know if we put all of these on, you're going to end up with one long gate that's constantly high, and that won't work. So you can't have two consecutive steps. I'll show you how to fix that in a minute. But the cool thing is, let's put gate in here. We'll take the output into the scope. Well, that looks more like triggers. It's not quite there yet, but we're getting close. So what do we do to make it a trigger? Well, we take off the sustain, we take off the release, we don't need it. Dial the attack all the way back, fastest possible attack. And now we've pretty much got triggers. You can dial back the decay a little bit just to give it a little bit more of an edge. And now you've basically got triggers from your Seek 3. So if we let's pop the oscillator back up here. If we pop this into the triggers, now we've at least got individual steps. We know that if we put two steps next to each other, we're still going to have a problem. So how do we fix that? We fix that by putting in another Seek 3. And we have to do a couple of things to this Seek 3. First of all, we need to take the first step and pop it into the reset. That way they start at the same time. And then we can take another ADSR, which we're just going to take this one and duplicate it. So we've duplicated that. We're going to pop it down here. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take the gate output, put it into the gate input here, and we're going to mark the opposite steps of the other one. So now this is step 1, this is step 2, this is step 3, 4, etc., all the way through. Now, we need to combine these two signals. We've got triggers coming from this. We've got the opposite triggers coming from this. We need to combine them, so we're going to toss some multiples in here. We're going to use this bottom section of multiples, which takes more multiple ins, 3 ins, and basically mixes them to go into the same output. Now, because we're using triggers, that they basically don't step on each other. So now we've got these inputs. We can pop it in here, and you've got a trigger on every step. So is that super efficient? And we can, maybe pop this. If we take this output and pop it into the actual multiple, which is 1 in to 3 outs, we can put one in here. Oops, try that again. We'll put one into the kick drum. We can put one into the scope so we can see what's up. And now we're getting triggers on every step, which is what we want. Like, maybe you don't want a hat, maybe you want a hi, or maybe you don't want a kick. I mean, you want a hi-hat. This is going to accomplish that. Now, you'll notice here that on the Seek3s, if you were doing this in real life, you'd want to add one more thing on this top row. We would want to add an external clock to these Seek3s. So what we want, whoops, I goofed it up. What we want is an LFO. Will it fit? It will not fit. So we're going to move the scope so we can fit it up top. So we're going to move these over. We're going to toss an LFO up here. And all this moving of modules is just because I like to try to keep things sort of organized so that when I look at it, it kind of makes sense to me. Like, this LFO is going to drive these two Seeks. It's going to be the clock for both of them. So for me, that makes sense. You do what you want. If you don't care and you can just put modules anywhere and just leave them there, great. That whatever works for you. I do this just to keep myself kind of from going insane. So we're going to take the bidirectional or whatever you call it output from the tidal modulator here. We're going to pop it into the external clock. And actually, I goofed. We're going to need another multiple, so we're going to toss a multiple here. Now we're going to put that into the external clock. We're going to put this into the other external clock. And now we have a clock source to drive basically everything that's going on. So real quickly, I can show you, this is the basic technique, right? You need to take your gate signal and use an ADSR to convert it to a trigger so that you've got, triggers to, do kicks and snares and stuff like that. So I'm going to open real quick a file that I made. Here it is. And let me just fix the audio on this because we need to pop it to there. So this uses the same technique. You can see I've got my tidal modulator over here. These are the two sequencers that are driving the kick. I've got the clock coming back down here. This is driving the snare. I've got another two sequencers and ADSRs that are driving the cymbals. And that cymbal oscillator is a constant oscillator, so I have to have another ADSR to actually make it discrete. So we have an ADSR here and a VCA, and then that's all piped into a mixer, and then that mixer is piped into the output. That's pretty much how it works. So, yes, this is kind of messy. It's not the nicest way to maybe, it'd be great if the Seek3s put out trigger, which they're going to, but they don't yet. But this is kind of the workaround. So until we get triggers from Seek3, you're kind of stuck doing it this way. Hey, so that's pretty much what I wanted to show you today. If you want to see more VCV Rack tutorials, go ahead and put some comments down there. Let me know what you want to see and what subject you'd like me to cover. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and please like and subscribe. And of course, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.